Hello everyone, this is Kevin with Yak River Rails. The reason I'm showing this rock wall right off the bat is because before I shot the video on how to do it, I forgot to take a video of what it looked like before. So I had to kind of go through my videos and find something where it appeared in there. I did. Unfortunately, there's a train barreling down on us. So after the horn's done blowing, we'll get started. Okay, well, let's get started. First thing I do is break out a standard scenery tool, commonly known as a screwdriver. And this Sculptamold is dry. It's banked up against a home-soaked road bed. And the reason I do it dry is I don't have to make up a small amount of Sculptamold and dribble it all over my scenery, which I've been known to do. Anyway, when it's dry, it breaks up and actually helps with making your rock a little bit more jagged, and you'll see that result when we get done, but don't be afraid to really work it over. As you can see, I just kind of push and prod and chisel. This next tool that I'm going to show you is basically it's a Sonicare toothbrush, and that sonic action, that vibrating action, gets deep into those crevices and removes all that debris. And these toothbrushes, I use them for a lot of stuff, not just scenery. On my model railroading, they're a great tool for cleaning. They flick stuff away. Anyway, I just tend to go back and forth and kind of work it in there, get all the debris and loose stuff out as much as I can, and I'll vacuum that up here momentarily to get it out of the way. And back to the screwdriver, a little more chiseling. You can't really mess this up. I mean, it'd be hard to do. Not saying it's impossible to do, but hard to do. Anyway, keep scrubbing away with that toothbrush and you can see that vibrating action. And yeah, this one's used, so it made it fairly inexpensive. And then we break out the paint, and I use black and grays, thinned quite a bit to get down into those crevices. That white, if you don't get it covered, it will show through in those crevices and obviously not look real good. I thin my paint pretty good so it will flow. And one of the things I do, I've found, I don't like to mix, thin my paint and then have other paint on a side by side, unthin paint. So what I do is I stack these dog food containers that you buy for your dog. I clean them out and I use them for screws and all kinds of other stuff. But what I do is I put water in the bottom one, and then I put my paint in this top one, and then I stack them in my hands that way. You'll see here I got water in the lower one, paint in the upper one. And this may or may not work for you. Works for me. But I'm able to keep the paint and water separated. And it's a pretty small little thing to hold on to in your hand. And this is the brand that I get. I'm sure they're available in other dog food brands. These containers are probably pretty specialized or standardized. Anyway, back to painting. As you can see, I use an older brush so I can get deep into those crevices and kind of work it in. And then what I'll do is I'll break out that Sonic tool again. That's Sonic toothbrush. And it'll continue knocking out that debris that'll probably have come out anyway, would have probably come out anyway. And it kind of flicks this stuff away. And once again, we'll vacuum that up here momentarily. And what I use for my vac is a Woodland Scenic hand vacuum. They got that clear tube on them. And what I did was I souped it up. I'll do a video on that. It's fairly easy to do, but some of you probably can already figure out what I'm doing here with it. But you can suck up that debris. I just discard the junk. I actually do save it because you can actually use that stuff for other things later. Once again, more black deep into those crevices. You can't really overdo it, and if you do, well, you can break out that sonic toothbrush again, because it'll rough that paint up. So now that it's dry, what I do is I bring my dry ballast over to the edge so I can kind of get a feel for what it's going to look like. And what I'm noticing here is right where the rock and the ballast come together, there's a pretty straight line there. So yeah, right there. I'm going to eliminate that, so we push the ballast back and clean it up. Doesn't have to be squeaky clean, but clean it up a little bit, push that ballast back. And then we break out that standard scenery tool, the screwdriver, and commence to busting up that top area, the above your rock wall. And the reason I do this is so that when that ballast gets put back, it kind of starts filling some of those nooks and crannies, and you don't see that straight line, not near as much anyway. But as I said, prying and pushing and chiseling and compacting. But once again, I just kind of start busting that up. And you can see that how much so it doesn't give real easy, but a little bit of work and a little bit of grunt work, and you'll get it. Okay, so at this point, it's starting to look pretty good. And use a little bit of white. Start getting that highlighted look. And you want to put this stuff on your white paint on pretty dry, the dry brushing technique. But if it goes on a bit wet, you can always go back with a brush and work it in, or even that sonic toothbrush, go back over it, and it'll knock some of that white down. And if you need to, you can put more black and gray on it. But if you just keep working it, it'll eventually get to where you want. I did this just to show that if you do put excessive white paint on and too much, it can be fixed. It takes a little bit more work, but in some ways it actually is a good thing, because you can start really seeing how your rocks are looking. And then you go back and, dull it down a little bit, get it a little more gray. And basically just keep working it until you get what you want. As you can see here, it's just a little bit of working it in. It's starting to dull out a little bit. Still pretty bright, but we'll keep working on it. So I sweep the ballast back over to the edge to kind of see how it's going to look. And I'm creating a border between that track in the background there and my ballast that's right up to the rock. The reason I'm doing that is because that piece of track there that's got the gaps in the rail, that hasn't been permanently spiked down. I need to be able to remove that so I can work on my turntable. So I'll just I'll leave the ballast dry. And it could be months before I get back and actually attach it there. But I will attach it here close to this rock wall, and I'll show you how I do that in a moment. One of the things I do when I start doing my weeds is I get a tray. It doesn't matter what it is. This happens to be a Folgers coffee can lid. It was because it was within reach. And what I do is I grab that scenic static grass and get a clump of it in my hand. Roll it a little bit, and then I'll cut the base off for a nice straight edge. Makes it easier to attach to your scenery because you don't have a haphazard line. And as you can see, what I do is I kind of curve and bend, and sometimes I'll just do a spot or I'll do an area with the glue. What I'm doing today is I'm not using tweezers is what I usually use, because I want to show that you don't need tweezers. But when you start attaching this stuff, this will go fairly quickly once you get the hang of it. And once again, I just start sticking it in. These longer fibers, these 12mm fibers, I don't have a whole lot of luck using them in my static applicator, so I just do them all by hand. And for the most part, it looks better anyway, because 12mm is pretty tall in HO scale. And once again, a little bit of glue wherever suits your fancy. And we'll continue adding weeds. And that glue will dry clear. One of the things I do with that vacuum is I'll start sucking up the excess, but I don't discard it or anything like that. What I actually do is the first couple passes I'll suck it up, and then I'll hover over the top of my scene, what I've just installed, and I'll shut the vacuum. I'll just shut it off for a sec and let that stuff dribble back out onto the ground, and then I'll suck it up again. And then I'll move over to the next one and do the same thing. Vacuum and then let it dribble out. And that gets into those nooks and crannies in between those grass blades and stuff. And then I'll suck it up again. And that one little white spot there, I'll come back and I'll do basically a small plant-like thing. It's just a hunk of woodland scenic bushes, a very small piece. And so those little things like that kind of add that little extra detail. You know, different colors, different shades. And like I say here, using a little bit greener fibers, because they're down in that ditch and they probably get a little bit more water, or would appear to get a little bit more water. And I just use my fingers to straighten them up. Nice thing about the vacuum is once they're starting to dry, it's not completely dry. You can hover over the top of that, and it'll help pull those fibers up. But what I'm doing here is I'm preparing to attach the ballast down, permanently attach it. But I'll leave that border so that I can remove that track, and eventually I'll attach the ballast down on that track too. So anyway, you can see how I'm sweeping it around, trying to get it away from all that stuff. A little bit of debris there. Sweep it out of the way, get rid of it. Okay, now this is where I use a pipette, and I mix about a 80% water and rubbing alcohol, 80% water, and I'll start dribbling it on there, and that helps set that ballast down, and it also prepares it for the glue and helps with the surface tension. Although I do put a little bit of soap and alcohol into my glue that I make, and I use scenic glues, I'll use Elmer's glues, I've used wood glues. Some of them, they got to be careful. You might not, some of them, the color won't completely go out of them, but generally they're all pretty compatible. Anyway, that pipette, you can get pretty precise where you want your, I guess I would call it anti-surface tension fluid. Anyway, here's what we're doing. This is a diluted glue mix. A little bit of glue, a bit of water, a drop or two of dish soap, and a little bit of alcohol, not much. And don't worry if you get a little bit over the side, that can be cleaned up later with a brush, or you can leave it. Anyway, that's what we're doing. Fairly complete, maybe a little bit more to do here and there. And I hope everybody enjoyed the video, maybe learned something, maybe some new stuff, maybe something old. Thanks for watching. See you next time.